Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome to D&CGaming Legion. My name is Chris.
And my name is Dan, and today we're coming at you with a very quick little video on the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've uploaded a video, but since the beta came out, we figured we'd do a little impressions video, our thoughts on the beta right now, after playing it for about a day or so.
And then we'll just talk about what we've seen so far. And yeah, so let's get into it. Okay, so first we're going to talk a little bit about the new game modes in Star Wars Battlefront 2. The first game mode that we played was called Strike. It's an infantry-based game mode where one team attacks and one team defends. It takes place on the planet from Episode 7 with that one alien, Maz, that gave Rey her lightsaber. So the Imperials have to recover an artifact and bring it back to an evacuation ship, and the Rebels have to stop them. It's pretty self-explanatory. Moving on.
Alright, so the next game mode is called Starfighter Assault. Now this one has multiple objectives and steps to it. So it starts out where you have your own cruisers that you have to defend, and you have enemy cruisers that you have to destroy. Once the rebels successfully do that, then they move on to Phase 2, where they have to now destroy the shield generator, while the Empire has to stop them. Now the rebels have a limited amount of lives, and the Empire has unlimited, obviously. So if the Empire destroys the rebel life counter, then Empire wins, but if the rebels can continue to complete their objectives, they'll win. So after the shield generator, they have to then destroy the life support, but the life support is shielded, and you have to destroy the couplings to make it vulnerable. However, it only stays vulnerable for a limited amount of time, so you're going to have to do as much damage as you possibly can when it is vulnerable, otherwise you're going to have to destroy the couplings again. So there's 3 different starships for each alliance, and they do different things. Like the bombers are very good at blowing up the objectives, but they're rather slow and vulnerable. So you have to have like a balanced team that, you know, can focus on like multiple different things, such as keeping off enemy fighters, while another player focuses on taking the objective. So it's a pretty cool game mode. It can last very long if you know, the rebels keep pushing through, or it could end very quickly if the Empire kills them all.
One more thing to note, there are hero ships on each side. Boba Fett's Slave 1 and Darth Maul's TIE Interceptor, I think it's called. And the Millennium Falcon on the Rebel side, and Poe Dameron from the new movie's X-Wing. So that wraps that up. On to the last game mode for the beta, Galactic Assault. Okay, so the final game mode in the beta, Galactic Assault, is probably the coolest. It's 40 players, so 20 on 20 teams, and it takes place on Naboo during the Clone Wars era. So you play as either the Clone Troopers side on the Republic, or you play as the droids on the Separatist side. Now the objective is the Separatists have to get a giant Separatist tank all the way to Naboo's throne room and blow it up. The Republic has to stop them by going and picking up giant ion launchers that take time to lock onto the giant objective and blow it up. The next phase, the Separatists have to break into the throne room by hacking 2 objectives on either side of the Naboo castle. Finally, the Separatists have to take over the throne room, which is a capture the flag type objective, where either side can get in and contest the objective, but ultimately whoever pushes the hardest wins.
Yeah, so this game mode actually has a mix of pretty much everything. You have heroes, you have vehicles, you have air vehicles. There's a lot going for this one, and I feel like this one is the most important as far as objectives go, because this one requires some serious teamwork. Because with those ion blasters, when you pick one of them up, everyone on the enemy team can see you, and they will immediately try killing you before you can lock onto the objective and fire at the tank. And when you do successfully land a shot on the tank, it makes it vulnerable for everyone on your team to attack it. So even if they don't have like a heavy, hard-hitting weapon, they could still, at the very least, do some damage. So communication and teamwork is very crucial. It's also worth noting that this is the only game mode in the beta where you could play as the actual heroes, like Darth Maul, Boba Fett, Rey, and Han Solo. Now, I actually got to play as Boba Fett myself, and he actually plays a little differently than he did in the very first game. He no longer has his flamethrower, at least in the beta. Instead, he's got a new ability where he pulls out his wrist rockets, and when you hit the fire button, he unleashes a barrage of wrist rockets that cause quite a big explosion, whatnot. So he's a little different. I didn't get a chance to play as Darth Maul, but he seems pretty damn good from other people I have seen who have gotten to play as him. And yeah, Boba Fett was the only character I actually got to play, unfortunately, from my time. But there's also some other units you can play as, not just heroes. Like, for example, Super Battle Droids are a unit you can call in through the new system known as Battle Points that you gain from just simply playing. And these units are special. They have their own different abilities, and they can turn the tide of a battle if you use them correctly. Like, there's two different versions of the Super Battle Droid, and they have different abilities. One's more expensive than the others. So I imagine that there will be a lot more in the actual full game.
Alright, moving on to classes in this game. It's a little different than the previous Battlefront, but more so like the old Battlefronts on the original Xbox and PlayStation 2. They break it up into 4 different categories: Assault, Heavy, Officer, and Specialist. So let's start off with the Assault. Okay, so the Assault on each team is basically your general run-of-the-mill soldier. Comes standard with a standard blaster and a couple of abilities. His first ability is the Thermal Detonator. Self-explanatory, it's just a grenade. His second ability is called the Vanguard, which is a shotgun that he can activate, and it does massive damage at close quarters. Only for a limited time, of course. And his third ability is Scan Dart, which is basically a dart that you fire, and you can see enemies through walls.
Okay, so moving on to the next class, which is called the Heavy. Now this guy is pretty much like a heavy machine gun trooper that is meant to just dish out a lot of damage and take a lot. So his abilities are Impact Grenade, Sentry, and Combat Shield. Now Impact Grenade is a grenade that you throw, and pretty much the second it hits anything, it instantly explodes. So this is good for people that just want to, throw a quick grenade at like a target and make them go boom. Next we have the Combat Shield. This is probably the bread and butter of this class because this makes a nice big force field around your character, in front of the character, and this makes it difficult for the enemies to hit you because you have this big shield. So if they want to hit you, they probably have to aim for your legs, but while they're trying to do that, you can just mow them down. The shield does slow you down when it's activated, and on top of that, once it can be destroyed if it takes enough damage, but however, it does last until you turn it off, after which it has a cooldown time. And last but not least is the Sentry ability. This one, he pulls out a giant Gatling laser gun and pretty much mows down enemies. Now while this is active, you take less explosive damage, and this gun hits pretty hard, so this is actually not a bad option against vehicles or objectives that you need to destroy. So, for example, during this Galactic Assault game mode, if the MTT is vulnerable and you pull this out and unleash like hell on it with this, you could do some seriously good damage. So, Heavy class is pretty damn awesome.
Alright, moving on to our third class, we have the Officer. In my opinion, this fits more of a tactical role of gameplay. He comes with a blaster pistol, so he doesn't hit that hard, but his abilities are where he really shines. His first ability, Flash Grenade, is basically a flashbang that you would encounter in any other first-person shooter, but the difference is, you can tap the button for the flashbang again, and it'll immediately go off. So say your target is moving toward you and you're going to overshoot him with your throw, tap it right before the grenade goes past him and you'll still blind him. His second ability is Blaster Turret, which, if you're familiar with the previous Star Wars Battlefront game, that was a power-up that you could pick up anywhere on the map and deploy, and it would just target enemies that walk past it. The Officer has that as one of his standard abilities, so that's pretty useful. The turret automatically repairs itself when another friendly officer is near it, so if it's taking damage and you have officers around it, you can keep it alive. And if you tap the button again while the turret is active, you'll initiate a self-destruct on the turret. So if an enemy gets too close and they're going to blow up your turret, you can blow it up beforehand and get some extra damage in. And his third ability, and this is why I say he fits more of a support role, is called Battle Command. What this does, it inspires your squad by issuing a battle command that allows your allies to withstand more damage. So basically, anybody in the area of effect of that move gets a buff to their health and can take a bit more punishment.
Alright, moving on to the last class, and what might possibly be my favorite out of the 4 right now is the Specialist. This guy more or less is a long-range sniper, but at the same time he could also support his allies in other ways as well. For instance, one of his abilities is called Thermal Binoculars, and what this allows him to do is he pulls out binoculars and he looks through them and you could see enemies when you're looking through them, and if you hover over them, they will get highlighted, whatnot, so your other teammates can see them. So even if you're in close quarter combat with this guy, you could still use this ability to help, like, support your team and show you where all the enemies are so they know before they walk into a room and get shot. And speaking of close quarter combat, one of his other abilities is called Infiltrator. When this is active, he gets a better radar, and he also pulls out a much better, like, close range rifle that fires in bursts. So you can still be useful in close quarter combat with this guy, and you don't have to just only snipe. And last but not least, he has Shock Grenade, which essentially is a grenade that slows enemies down. So you could throw this, slow them down, then take your time aiming with, like, say, your sniper or not. Or at the very least, slow them down so your teammates can pick off a target that maybe you couldn't finish.
So if you're familiar with the previous Star Wars Battlefront, you'll remember star cards. They've changed a little bit since the last game. Now they're no longer consumables that you use and have to pick up more charges for as you play the game. Now they're just cards you unlock by opening packs. And they come in two different categories, boost cards and ability replacement cards. The boost cards are the same, at least so far, for all four classes. You get Stealth, which is you remain hidden from enemy scanners when firing your weapon, and you deal increased melee damage. There's Brawler, which when you defeat an enemy with a melee ability, your abilities refresh and you gain a small amount of health. And there's Resourcefulness, where all of your abilities have a faster cooldown. So those are pretty useful.
And also, there is what is known as ability replacement cards. These essentially are specific to certain classes, and they essentially will change one of the abilities that the class has. So essentially, it really comes down to personal preference, whether you maybe don't like this one ability that a class has. If you find a replacement card that changes it to an ability that you like, well, now you can equip that and use that ability. So this offers some good level of customization to each player. Alright, so now just some overall wrapping up impressions that we have of the beta.
Warning. The following opinions by Chris and Dan are completely different from each other. Chris's opinion is much more rational and unbiased, while Dan's opinion is much more biased due to him being a Star Wars fanboy, and everything he says from here on out should be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast playing it. I loved the previous Star Wars Battlefront. The only thing in the last game that kind of bugged me was the expensive season pass, which they're completely eliminating this time, where all the DLC for this game is going to be free, which I think is a great plus to the game. As for the gameplay, it's much better than the last game. The last game was great, but this just feels really, really good. Whether you're playing as the classes, the heroes, it feels good, it sounds good, it looks good. I can't wait. Anyway, if you're a Star Wars fan, don't forget to pick this up when it comes out on November 17th.
Well, actually, what I was about to say was, because I have a vastly different opinion on this, was, alright, I like what I see in the beta, whatnot, I enjoyed the gameplay, but I advise all of you to be cautious, whatnot, and simply be patient, whatnot, because the way I look at it is this: you don't have to get this game day one, whatnot, because it's going to have free DLC, so even if you don't get it right away, and you come back get it later, there will be new stuff, and you don't have to pay for that, which is good. And if the game is good, and you don't play it on launch date, it'll still be a good game later down the line. So I would advise all of you to just be simply cautious, whatnot. Wait, see how it does, you know, watch reviews, look up gameplay videos, read articles, do whatever you gotta do to find out as much information about this game as possible before you just jump on the hype train and buy it. Because that's what I'm gonna do. Because if it ends up being a good game, I will end up getting it one day, and it will be a good game. It's as simple as that.
Or you could do what I do and ignore all of other people's reviews who might be biased or unbiased or just overly critical in general, and play the game for yourself. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. If you play the game for yourself, you'll know whether you like it or not. It's not always about other people's opinions influencing your own. But be that as it may, we hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see our other videos, and as always, we will see you next time.